The power relations within the Middle East have been changing for a while. They began to change with the invasion of Iraq, which has empowered Iran tremendously in Iraq and extending through to Syria, through Lebanon with Hezbollah, all the way to Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So Iran certainly has been on the rise. Developments recently have also empowered Turkey. Turkey has been increasingly engaged in the Middle East economically and diplomatically, but with the latest events over the UN vote on the Iran nuclear issue, and more importantly the flotilla incident with Israel, Turkey and Prime Minister Erdogan has been catapulted sort of into a leadership position on the most popular or populist issue in the Middle East, which is the Arab-Israeli conflict, and Turkey stands to gain a lot of influence from that as well. External powers are growing in power in terms of China and Russia that through the 90s were less influential, are more influential. And Israel is having a harder time dominating the region if you compare to the 80s or even the 90s. And you have the emergence of powerful non-state actors, most powerfully Hezbollah, but also Hamas to a considerable degree. So it's very much a region in flux. U.S. power came in powerfully between 2003 and 2006 or 7, but now is on the decline. So a whole bunch of changes taking place. Turkey's vision for the region, and its vision actually for all of its external relations, evolved in the 90s actually, and has been consolidated in the first decade of the 21st century. It's based largely on Turkey's economic interests. Turkey has become a tiger among economies of the world and has been growing by leaps and bounds, although it doesn't have oil or gas. So this is largely through export. And has been achieving very high growth rates through export. It is now the 17th largest economy in the world, which is quite remarkable. In order to continue to grow, it needs as many markets as it can secure. To have markets, it needs stability and peace in order to interact with these markets. This applies to its orientation towards Europe, which is its biggest market, but also its relationships north towards the Balkans, the Caucasus, the Black Sea area, and also relates to its relations with Iran, Iraq, Syria, the Gulf countries in the Arab world. It has enunciated this policy in the terms of zero problems with its neighbors, and it has pursued this as well through vigorous diplomacy in various areas, but particularly in the Middle East, to try to resolve problems, resolve crises. It's been very active in trying to find a negotiated solution to the Iranian nuclear crisis. It's been working with the Iraqis and the Kurds to manage conflict in Iraq. And of course, it was playing a leadership mediation role between Israel and Syria just a couple of years ago, and has been previously pushing for progress on the peace process between Arabs and Israelis. So this has been what it has been doing over the last decade and a half. However, differences or I would say run-ins between Turkish diplomacy and American diplomacy on the Iranian issue in particular, maybe a series of misunderstandings or miscues, have led to serious disagreement over how to handle Iran. And of course, the flotilla incident just a few weeks ago, in which 9 Turks were killed by Israeli commandos, was a big escalation of tension with Israel. So Turkey has been generally moving in the direction of trying to provide stability, calm, and mediation, but now finds itself at odds with 2 traditional friends and allies, in a sense. And we're at a moment when both Turkey and Israel, and Turkey and the U.S., in a sense, need to rethink where they've gotten to. They need each other to move forward, and this would be a moment to rethink that. Prime Minister Erdogan is a popular figure, and he is somewhat of a populist himself. He likes to stir up sort of public support. He has two constituencies at least. One is the Turkish constituency itself. Turkey is in a run-up to elections, and the themes that he has been raising and the tension with Israel has proven a popular stance for him to take domestically. And certainly he's playing to a domestic audience there. Given Turkey's increased economic and political interest in the Arab world and the Muslim world linked to its economic ambitions, definitely increasing his popularity and Turkey's popularity in the Arab world is useful for Turkey and useful for Turkey's interests. And this has been achieved in the last few weeks. It was beginning to take off after the Gaza war in December, January 2008, 2009, when Turkey was very critical of Israel's war on Gaza. That was a very popular position in the Arab world. This goes along with the Turkish decision a few months ago to launch an Arabic language Turkish television station. Turkish programs on Arabic TV have become increasingly popular. So Turkey is re-entering into sort of the Arab consciousness, and they're looking to Turkey, many people, partly as a cultural kind of model, and they're looking to increasingly to Prime Minister Erdogan as sort of a champion of Arab and Islamic causes. This does not please the Iranian leadership, which was trying to monopolize those positions for a long time, and it might displease some of the Arab leaders who find that their own populations are possibly responding more to the Turkish Prime Minister's positions than to their own positions. Turkey is not turning away from Europe and the United States, but Turkey is charting a more Turkish set of interests and positions, and willingness to go out on a limb when it feels that it believes in what it's doing, or that it's something that is important for its political or economic interests. Whereas Turkey might have been perceived previously as being somewhat dependent on the West, it no longer sees itself in that way at all. It is a proud member of NATO and a very effective member of NATO. It has applied for membership in the European Union. It's the European Union which has been rejecting Turkey, not Turkey rejecting the European Union. And it was out in front trying to help U.S. policy in the Middle East in the peace process. And it was Israel that was dragging its feet. And it was on the Iranian file, has been for months and a couple of years, trying to coordinate with the European or the P5+1 group and the Americans as well to help mediate with the Iranians, something that for most months the P5+1 and the US was grateful for that role. And Turkey currently believes that the deal that it struck with Brazil, with the Iranians, was something that served the general attempts of the West to find a negotiated solution with the Iranians. They do not perceive it as something going against. Turkey is more fearful than an Iranian, more fearful of an Iranian nuclear weapon than the U.S. is. Turkey is right next door. And Turkey is very concerned about this issue. Hence, the concern about the Iranian nuclear program is the same in Turkey, Europe, Russia, and the United States. What has happened, I think, is an unfortunate set of misunderstandings, maybe diplomatic misunderstandings, perhaps on both sides, from U.S. diplomacy and perhaps from Turkish diplomacy. I think both sides need to move forward and rebuild the trust and the cooperation on the Iranian nuclear issue, because the sanctions by themselves are not going to solve the problem. And the door for negotiation with Iran, according to all players, still needs to remain open and needs to be pursued. and the Turks are still well placed to play an important role in doing that. The relations between Turkey and Israel used to be stronger and more strategic than they are today. And this was the case in the last decades of the last century, when Turkey regarded Syria and Iraq and much of the Arab world somewhat as opponents and hostile. And the secularist, military-supported governments in Turkey viewed Israel as a necessary strategic ally against threats from Syria or Iraq or elsewhere. All of that has changed. The government in Turkey, the last two sets of governments, have had Islamic roots. They view the Arab and the Muslim world in a very positive way. More importantly, their relations with Syria and Iraq have been completely transformed. Previously hostile relations with Syria have become very cooperative over the Kurdish issue and water and other issues, and previously very tense relations with the regime of Saddam Hussein in Baghdad have turned into very positive relations with both the northern Kurdish regions of the new Iraq as well as the new governments in Baghdad. So Turkey's situation vis-à-vis its Arab neighbors is very different. Also, Turkey as an emerging economic power and interpreting its strategic interests through its economic interests recognizes that good relations with the Arab and Muslim world, like good relations with Europe and other large markets, is of strategic importance to it. Turkey and Israel still have significant military relations in terms of technological cooperation and training, and they also have a fairly significant trade between the two, amounting to about $5 billion, which is significant. But the relationship is not as necessary or strategic as it once was. The Turkish position remains that their relationship with Israel as a state and as an economy and as a society is very strong, and I believe that is the case. But the current government in Turkey has had bitter disagreements with the current government in Israel, which really were triggered by the Gaza war in December of 2008. And we mustn't forget that that war was launched by Prime Minister Olmert 3 days after meeting privately with Prime Minister Erdogan and talking with Prime Minister Erdogan about mediation, Turkish mediation and peace talks with Syria. Prime Minister Olmert returned without mentioning any word about an impending war, and the war took place, very much embarrassing the Turks and the Turkish Prime Minister. So there is almost a personal history and a sense of being betrayed from the Turkish government side to the Israeli government side. The shifting position of Turkey it could be a risk and an opportunity for the U.S. The risk is that Turkey and the U.S., if they don't reconnect and talk to each other in a trustful way, in a direct way over the next weeks, they might drift further apart. Turkey feels slighted by the U.S. and treated in a hostile manner by Israel, and this has accumulated over several years, and hence there's a sense of anger or being hurt on the Turkish side. The Americans feel the same way. They feel that they were betrayed by the Turks on the Iranian nuclear vote in the UN, so there's rancor on both sides. It's clear that once one thinks this through, Turkey needs very good relations with the U.S., has deep interests with the U.S., and they know it and everybody knows it. And the U.S. has very strong and strategic interests with Turkey. The fact that, and hence that means very simply that it's incumbent on both sides to take steps to mend the relationship. There's a lot of debate now in Turkey that perhaps Prime Minister Erdogan has gone a bit too far and maybe he should rebuild relations, and indeed he has sent many envoys to Washington in the past days and weeks to rebuild the relationship. On the U.S. side, I think there are three things that the U.S. administration can do. First of all, I think it can help the Turks and Israelis find a satisfactory and a face-saving way out of the flotilla crisis, some kind of apology, and it would be good for the U.S. to show that it's concerned and trying to help Turkey and Israel out. The second relates to the Iran file. I think it's recognized that although Turkey and Brazil voted against, the fact that they have this trust of the Iranians is a very valuable thing for the international community. And hence, I think the U.S. and the P5 can again engage with Turkey and Brazil and see what can be done further to revive talks with the Iranians and see what might be done. Thirdly, on the Arab-Israeli conflict, I think that it's useful and helpful that Prime Minister Erdogan has staked out this rather hard-line position, let's put it that way, because it enables him to appeal to the Arab public and the Muslim public. And he has now such credibility that, and he is at heart, and the party in Turkey has been such, at heart, they've been pushing for peace talks and pushing for stability. Their interests are in peace and stability in the region, and they've been working on it for years. So the fact that you have somebody like Prime Minister Erdogan front and center and able to speak more for an Arab public and a Muslim public is an opportunity. It's much better having him up front rather than President Ahmadinejad of Iran or Hassan Nasrallah of Hezbollah. And unfortunately, the Arab leaders who are engaged in peace talks, like President Mubarak or King Abdullah of Jordan or King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, don't have the pull or the credibility in public opinion to when push comes to shove in terms of actually making progress towards peace. Concessions have to be made, difficult decisions have to be made, and the Arab leaders are too weak at this point to be very helpful in that, and Iran doesn't want to help at all. So I think it's an opportunity that Turkey's in this position, and since President Obama has said from day one that the Arab-Israeli conflict is his #1 priority, this is the involvement of Turkey in this way. While it raises tensions a little bit, tensions were already high and progress was not being made. Perhaps it's good that tensions are raised a bit so that gives momentum to move forward, and Turkey can be a very able partner in building peace in the region.